Hey everybody, welcome to your readings for the week. These are the readings for the week ending August 6th. So we are done, officially done, with July and moving into August here. We got lots of crazy stuff, going on with the planet. So we're just going to get right to it, and we're going to start our horoscopes with Jordan, our resident Aries here. We still have Jupiter in Aries, still retrograde. It's going to be retrograde through about September. So we got another month, maybe a month and a half of that retrograde. And when Jupiter is all about growth and expansion, so when Jupiter's retrograde in your sign, it really kind of feels like the more you try to build things, make changes, it just feels like there's always something getting in the way of that. And a good example that I could probably use with you is the work situation that you got right now, the kids being home in the summer. You're kind of like, I have to take care of my kids, but I have to get work done, kind of a thing. And so it kind of feels like everywhere you turn, there's no way to resolve this situation, and it can be really kind of frustrating, especially because this week your focus is on your day-to-day schedule. So that means your day-to-day routine, kind of, in a way. The good news is that Jupiter moves into a trine with the sun this week. And funny thing, the sun is all about the career. So if you are unable to, say, find time to be able to get into the office, or if you're unable to get child care so that you can get into the office, this actually, you may need to be a little bit creative. Maybe get everything set up at home so that you have a home office that you can work from. Maybe swap out with Taylor in terms of who's at home and who's the office, kind of a thing. I think basically what it comes down to is, I know it's getting really busy over there, and you might have to get a little bit creative with your schedule. And the sun's influence in this actually does help you be able to do that. Outside of that, one of the things that is coming through, or that I'm being shown for you this week, is I kind of feel like there's other influences that are trying to infiltrate into that schedule as well. And I kind of, it's sort of funny because I kind of been feeling a little bit the last couple of times we've got together, a bit of a sense of change, if that makes sense, within you, in terms of the amount of drama and the amount of things that are quote unquote useless that you're willing to put up with. And I feel like as we get older, that list of things starts to get really, really small. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller, because we realize that our time is precious, and we just don't have time to waste on things that are not important right now. So that being said, I do see some of that stuff coming up again this week, and maybe even a sense of you just sort of putting your foot down and saying, you know what, I'm way too busy to deal with that right now. You're going to have to go find somebody else that is willing to listen to that, or deal with that, or help you, or anything. And this would be coming from somebody who, I would say, tends to be drama all the time. They're always coming to you with a problem. They always seem to have a problem. They always seem to need you to fix the problem for them, kind of a thing. And it does get old, and there are elements of you feel guilt because you want to help people and be that person. um but you do want to look at where you're helping and where you're enabling, if that makes sense, because unfortunately, when we help too much, as in they don't have to do anything because we always drop everything to do stuff for them, that turns into enabling. And when you enable somebody, you're denying them the ability to learn how to do it on their own. And that when they are on their own, they won't be able to do it. So maybe look at it that way. This person better than I do. I mean, chances are they're probably going to go find somebody else to do everything for them all the time, but it doesn't have to be you. And nobody said that it had to be you. So this is really, this week, I think that kind of situation is going to come up more than once. I see at least two instances of that. And don't feel bad if you have to say no, or you don't have time, or you just flat out don't want to. I mean, you do have that right also. So that's what I have for you, Jordan. And I'm going to move on to Darcy. So we have Uranus and Mars in conjunction in Taurus, and we have a T square, which basically happens when you have multiple planets in the same mode. So in this case, we're talking about the fixed mode, because Taurus is a fixed sign, with Mercury and the Sun and Saturn also being in fixed signs. It creates a pretty big challenge. And as we kind of sort of round out the end of the week, on Friday, when the moon moves into the last fixed sign, which is Scorpio, this amplifies into a huge challenge. So it's the biggest challenge that you can have in terms of the zodiac. So the aspects of life that this is going to affect, your focus is on relationships. Mercury's and the Sun's focus is on career. The moon's focus is on self. These are all the heavy hitter focuses. Saturn's focus is on the home. So these are generally, if you were to look at the houses, they're actually broken down into three separate groups. And this group is the main group of houses. It's what we normally focus on, who we are compared to our relationships, what our career is, what our home life is, kind of a thing. So these are the big ones, unfortunately. Let's look at just the T square there for a minute. If you're focused on relationships and this T square is causing a challenge within that, as well as your career and your home, it kind of feels like an unbalance or an imbalance, almost like you're being pulled from here to here to here, and that can be a little bit challenging. It may also create a situation for you this week where you want to do something, you want to hang out with friends, but something at work comes up, or you have responsibility, you can't afford to because you got to pay your rent, kind of a thing, which is annoying. I mean, it's not like a life or death thing. It's really frustrating when that happens, because obviously you work hard, you want to enjoy it, right? So as the moon moves into this and amplifies it on Friday and turns it into a fixed grand cross, first of all, fixed signs like us really resist change. And so when you have an aspect like this in the fixed signs, sometimes it slows down the progress of change as well. So if you're trying to make changes in certain aspects of your life and it just feels like it's not working, this may actually be slowing things down, and it will probably slow things down for a couple of weeks. Once we get to this grand cross on Friday and the moon plays a part in this, it can create an emotional situation. And I sort of see it as starting off as a challenge at the beginning of the week, and as we get towards the end of the week, it's almost like the challenge has become so great, it's almost like an emotional breakdown. So the moon has a tendency to kind of make things more emotional than they need to be. And the fact that Mars is joined in there as well doesn't help the situation. Mars is a very aggressive um feeling, and so you may find yourself in a situation where not only can you not make a change where you would like to make a change, but it's becoming extremely frustrating. um I find at times that when we're working towards something, it's that point where we're about to lose our minds and give up because it's just not worth it, which is the point that happens right before everything changes and starts to move forward. So just have a little bit of patience with yourself. I'm a big fan of like I tell my husband all the time when he's having computer issues, doing my videos and stuff like that. You don't get frustrated, just walk away from it, calm down, come back to it. And usually things run a little bit smoother. We don't realize how much our own emotional where we are emotionally in terms of frustration and impatience and things like that really does have an effect on how things flow. And the more you try and force something that doesn't want to be forced, the more that flow seems to kind of sort of die down a little bit. And that's what you want to avoid. So, as much as you can do to eliminate the frustration, the better in this particular situation. The good news is that Uranus and Mars are forming a grand sextile with Neptune and Venus. Venus is focused on long-term goals. Neptune is focused on those that you love. So this actually adds an element of a couple of things. One, if you're trying to do something, ask for help. Fixed signs are not known for asking for help, really wanting help. Most Tauruses that I know are like, no, I'll do it, kind of a thing. But sometimes when you add that element of somebody else coming into it, not only are they putting their physical energy into it, but they're putting their mental energy into it as well. We all get overwhelmed and miss things, and that outside influence can come in and really help you to maybe maybe find something that you're missing and that's why it's not working. So it does overall make things easier for you. The other thing about that is that Venus comes in terms of influencing your long-term goals to remind you to be a little bit creative. I think at times earth signs and fixed earth signs like Taurus have a tendency to look at things a little bit too black and white. And even though Venus is your ruling planet and it is such a creative influence, but don't be afraid to get creative and step out of the box a little bit. Maybe do things a little bit differently than you normally would. Honestly, that's what Uranus really is all about. And you're not going to get away from this planet because they're still going to be with you for a few more years. So you might as well use his energy while you have it, right? Outside of that, one of the things that's coming up, or I feel is coming up for you this week, is I do feel that there is a situation with a particular individual that may be coming up that is, I want to say that your interaction with them is just old, like you're over it. Like if a hole could just, kind of open up behind them and swallow them, that would be awesome. We don't obviously, want that to happen. But I feel like this situation, and because of the way that the planets are moving together, this situation may come to a head like in a big way. And so you definitely want to maintain your frustration in that, because of course, obviously, if you emotionally react, that's not really going to help the situation all that much. But I also feel like instead of not saying anything and just dealing with it, this is the time to actually say something. If you don't tell people that they're doing things to bother you, you're denying them the ability to change it. or at least if you know, even if they wanted to change it, you're denying them the ability to do that. Now, in most cases, those people don't want to change their behavior, but at least you've given them an opportunity, right? Before you just say, okay, I'm kind of done dealing with you. And I totally forgot my microphone, so I hope you guys can hear me. I've done it before though, so I think it'll be okay. So just watch out for this situation and be mindful, because words do have power, and you want to use the right kind of power to deal with this situation. I don't feel that this is a person you can eliminate necessarily, but you can explain to them in a way that they understand that their behavior towards you is not acceptable, and give them a chance to change that around a bit for you. So that is what I have for you, Darcy. I am going to move on to Connie. So we have some craziness going on this week in terms of the planets in your sign and how they're lining up with other planets. The sun being in Leo right now, and Mercury being in Leo right now. Actually, Mercury starts off the week in Leo and then moves on to Virgo, but it's still close enough to the cusp at the end of the week that it plays a part in this chaos that the planets are dealing with this week. So we're looking at Mercury and then the sun joining into a very negative aspect with Uranus and Mars in Taurus, and also Saturn in Aquarius. Now, all of these signs are fixed signs. As we get into Friday and the moon moves into the last fixed sign, which is Scorpio, it makes it a much bigger challenge, and it adds an element of emotion to it, which of course we all love, right? Your focus is on career, and of course lately it's sort of odd that your focus is on career at this time, because you haven't really been able to work obviously at all for the past few weeks. You've been recovering from your surgery. So I see a couple of different things that are a couple of different options, I should say. One, this aspect is going to play out in terms of you are going to go back to work, and it's going to feel like your schedule is so overloaded that you cannot keep up with it. My advice for that is to, which I think we've talked about, but if we didn't, or even if we did, I'm going to say it again. My advice is, when you get your schedule for the week, that you take a look at it and see, you want to try and ease your way back into work. If they give you a schedule that is just absolutely ridiculously full, you've got 3 or 4 appointments a week, 5-6 days out of the week, that's really not easing into it. That's jumping right back in as if you had never left. So don't be afraid to get in touch with them and have some of that moved around a little bit. The other option is you're not able to go back to work yet, and you know that work is piling up, but you're still kind of sort of stuck at home. And there is an element of being stuck at home in this aspect. So in that case, you want to make sure that you are aware of how your brain does what it does, right? And you don't want to spend all that time worrying about all the work that needs to be done on top of other responsibilities that need to get done. This is such a hard thing for most people. When you have surgery and you have to recover from surgery, almost everybody is like, they spend all their time, their recovery and healing time, worrying about everything that they're not getting done because they're in the process of recovering and healing. And the problem with that is that it really doesn't allow you to relax and heal. And that is really necessary. If your brain is still going a mile a minute, your body is not resting, because your brain is not resting either. So definitely do keep that in mind. The good news is that the sun is in trine with Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter is all about growth and expansion. And when Jupiter is retrograde, it does feel like moving forward and moving out of difficult situations, or even the ability to make a change in these situations. It does seem like it slows that process down a little bit. However, because Jupiter is focused on your day-to-day activities and it's retrograde and slowing things down, I feel that that's helpful, actually, because it does give you a little bit more time, a little bit more wiggle room in your schedule. So again, this is helpful in terms of making sure that your schedule isn't so overloaded that you can't handle it. I keep getting over and over again, you need to ease back into your schedule. Regardless of what you're given or what they expect of you or what you even think you expect of yourself, it's still important for you to ease back into that schedule. So somehow, if you could burn those burn those words on your brain, that really needs to happen. We're taught, and when I say ease back into your schedule, I'm saying 3 or 4 days max, one appointment on each day, maybe 2 on one towards the end. And that's it. Okay. At least that's what I'm being told. And I'm being told by Frankie, by the way, and in my experience with her and you. She's pretty smart. She knows what she's talking about. So that's what I have for you, Connie. And I'm going to move on to Jenny. And I just have to say, Jenny, I was so worried about you a couple of days ago. And obviously I'm recording a week before. So to see that you posted about your birthday and how wonderful it was, and I didn't see your house engulfed in fire when you did that, I'm very glad that it's nowhere near you, and I hope it stays that way. Okay, so let's look at the massive craziness that is this week, okay? Because astrologically, it is a massive craziness. We do have the sun and Mercury in Leo. Mercury's moving out of Leo by the end of the week, but still very much a part of this T-square with Uranus, Mars, and Saturn. And on Friday, when the moon moves into Scorpio, this becomes a grand cross. So this is a really big, very difficult aspect that affects all the major parts of your life, yourself, how you are within your relationships, your career, and your home. When you're doing a chart, these are the first houses that you look at, because these are the houses that most people put the most importance in, right? And that's what we show to the world, who we are publicly, who we are privately, who we are to ourselves, and who we are to other people. When this becomes a grand cross, and a fixed grand cross to boot, towards the end of the week on Friday, the moon's influence and Mars' influence is definitely going to possibly set you up for an emotional response due to the challenges that are going on around you. And for you, I really feel that this has a lot to do with just being pulled in so many different places. I think that you're absolutely amazing single mom, partnered in your own company. You have so many things going on, and to be honest with you, though I don't see exactly what you're doing because I'm not there every day, I think of you as Wonder Woman. I'm not going to say there's very few women that can do that, because that's not true. Actually, that would be very rude. But I have worked with so many women who think they need a man in order to survive, whether they have children or they don't have children. And you are one of those women that looks all of those women in the face and goes, "Bitch, please." Okay. Like, do you really think a man is going to make this easier on me? or they need a partner, right? And so, but I feel like this week is one of those weeks where things are just so chaotic around you. And I feel like this fire is definitely going to play into that a little bit. Not to say that it's coming to your house or anything, but it is in the area and it's going to create complications, whether it's traffic complications, whether it's, there's all kinds of complications that it can create. And when you have a heavy work schedule and then you got a lot of stuff going on at home, I'm sure the kids are going to start going back to school. This is just a lot of stuff. I feel like Jenny is standing in the middle of this going, okay, I need a man because somebody has to take on some of this responsibility here. Good news. All right. Good news. You can't screw it up. All right. I mean, I really feel like sometimes when you get overwhelmed like this, it feels like, maybe you have to focus more or you're going to miss something. The truth of the matter is that I also feel that you're really good at focusing on what you're doing in the moment and not necessarily focusing on 10 different things at once in your mind at the same time, which is why you're the one that does my taxes. I don't need somebody that does that doing my taxes. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge. The good news is that the big part of the challenge happens on Friday, and then it moves out, and it continues to be a challenge, but only for a couple of more weeks, and then that's going to move on, and things will calm down again and not be quite so crazy. But I look at this for you as one of those just you have everything going on at once this week, and it is going to feel like you just have no time for yourself, but you do. Make time for yourself. Do the Jenny bubble bath. Take the time to have some me time or you time, things like that. Meditate, ground and bubble. Do all those things that you need to do to keep your energy level going so that you can get through it. And I know you will get through it. I have all the faith in the world that you will. So that is what I have for you, Jenny. And I'm going to move on to Linda. First of all, we're going to kick off this week with the moon in your sign. And actually, it's going to be helpful because it moves into a grand sextile with Uranus, Mars, which are in conjunction with each other, and Venus. A grand sextile is a very helpful aspect. The planets move together and they're working together in some way to help you out. With your focus focus for you right now is on those that support you, your personal cheerleading squad, as I like to call it. Uranus and Mars are focused on relationships and money, a little bit of both. And then we've got Venus focused on long-term goals. Actually, this is a really good opportunity at the beginning of the week to take some stock in your long-term goals. I don't know if it's my tongue or my mouth or my brain or what. Sometimes I just can't seem to get the words out. It's kind of weird. The beginning of the week is a really good time to focus on your long-term goals. And of course, we're talking about Sunday, which is usually a good day for that because most people don't have a heavy schedule on Sundays. I know you, so I'm pretty sure you do have a pretty hefty schedule every day. But it's a good time to sit in and check in with your long-term goals. Make sure that you're on the right track. Make sure that they still resonate with what you're currently doing right now, that you haven't veered off of them. And also, it's a good time to really take a look at the support that you have for these goals. And make sure that you have the right kind of support for these goals. And that includes people that are part of those goals. So people that you are working with, you want to make sure to stop every now and then and just kind of do an inventory of each individual to make sure that they're where they need to be, where you need them to be, that you're where they need to be, and that they're actually pulling for the same team. Because you've been down that road before, so you want to make sure that you're working with people that are all in and not necessarily getting in the way, if that makes sense. And I mean, I don't see a lot of those people, but they happen. As we move into Monday, the moon moves into two trines, actually, one with Pluto, and continues to be in a trine with Uranus and Mars, and still focused on your personal cheerleading squad. Pluto is focused on the home, and then we still have Uranus and Mars focused on finances. So this is also a really good time to put some serious energy into your financial goals as well. As the moon moves into an opposition with Neptune, however, this gets a little bit more difficult, because an opposition is a challenge and not necessarily a helpful aspect. And this particular opposition may have you feeling like your schedule is too jam-packed, especially in terms of having to toggle back and forth between your work and your responsibilities at home, which exactly what I'm talking about. And in some cases, your responsibilities at home are not just, I'm not just talking about Clark, I'm talking about your responsibilities to yourself and your own health as well. It is almost impossible sometimes to feel like you have the time for everything. And I was just talking to my husband this morning about some things that are going on with me, not medical things. These are feminine. I'm getting to that age, and kind of a thing, but he's still concerned because he's not going through it. He's still concerned, and you need to go into the doctor and get checked. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll just pull time out of my butt to find that. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Is something coming up and you're just like, oh, I'm really, like, I really have time to deal with this right now. And I feel like sometimes it's easier for you to incorporate what Clark has going on into your schedule than it is yourself. And it's really important to make sure that you do that too, because you are just as important as he is. That you are. As we move into towards the end of the week, Mercury moves into Virgo on Thursday officially, and moves into opposition with Saturn. Also plays a small part on Friday, plays a small part in a fixed grand cross. Now, these are all in fixed signs, which Virgo is not, but because Mercury is so close to that cusp, it's still, unfortunately, in this, or it plays its part in this major challenge. So you may feel this a little bit on Friday. Major challenge in terms of every aspect of your life: what's going on at home, what's going on at work, what's going on with you, what's going on within your relationships. And because the moon and Mars are really big players in this, the level of frustration can be really high. So I would say that on Friday, what I'm feeling from that is that I really feel like you're going to have so much going on that it's going to be difficult to juggle everything. And I literally have this vision of you with all of the juggling balls, but before you can even throw them up in the air, you keep dropping them, if that makes sense. So I feel that the best advice would be to take a look at the amount of balls that you have, and anything that can wait until tomorrow should be set aside, so that you're not juggling quite so many balls, and it might actually make things a little bit easier for you. And that is what I have for you. And now I am going to move on to Theresa Demarco. So luckily for us, for you, there's not a whole lot going on in Libra this week except for the moon. The moon is going to come into Libra and be in Libra on Tuesday and Wednesday. When it moves in on Wednesday, it does form a T-square with Pluto and Venus, and this is a bit of a challenge, especially because Libra's focus is very much on the inner self, the internal, the secret closet is what I usually refer to it as. The secret closet is that place where we hide our traumas. A lot of times, the emotional stuff that we just don't want to deal with goes in there. So if you have childhood, trauma, we usually just kind of sort of stuff that down, pretend that it's what makes us who we are, and don't notice that it's triggering us in various different ways. And so this could be adult trauma just as much as it can be childhood traumas as well. With what you've been going through lately, the past couple of weeks, a lot of loss, in terms of your family. When I say triggers, there could be a lot of things that come up this week that will trigger a memory of one of those people. And that's when you're so fresh in the grief, that can be very, very challenging. Especially while you're working. I don't like crying when I'm driving in my car. I can't imagine driving a big rig and doing it. But also take into consideration and keep in mind that this is temporary. It's not temporary, but as big as it is, this on Wednesday is temporary. It won't quite be so overwhelming to you throughout the rest of the week. It just seems like when the moon comes in, it sort of amplifies all of that emotional stuff that you have going on. And you may also find yourself not having quite so much patience for other people because of it, especially other people on the road. They have a tendency to act like jerks around trucks a lot. Mm. My advice is, when you get off work that day, or any chance that you can get, taking some time to do something that you really enjoy doing. I know you really enjoy spending time with your dog. Um, and that's always a good thing. And it's always nice, especially this time of the year, because the days are so incredibly long, when you get home, to just take some time spending it, outside doing something with the pup. But also reach out to people around you as well. There's always opportunities to be able to. I know you work a lot. I totally know how that feels. But, after work, reach out to somebody. You don't have to see them. Reach out to somebody on the phone and talk through your feelings. Make sure it's somebody that you're comfortable doing that with, obviously. The more you talk through your feelings, it doesn't make them go away, but when you got them stuck in your head, they start to go in these weird, crazy places where you start to amplify it, or change it in a weird way somehow in your brain that doesn't really quite work for you. And then you start to go to these other places that you could avoid. When you put a voice to it and talk it out, it's not, in this case, it doesn't make it seem like it's not as big of a deal, because it is a big deal. But it does at least give you the outlet to be able to say, okay, I just can't hold on to this anymore. I need somebody to take it for me for a minute. And it does ease the pain some. And anytime that you can do that, it definitely will help. Outside of that, once the moon moves out of your sign, things do calm down a little bit. The focus is still on that emotional closet, that internal closet. So you may find that there is more triggers coming up than there usually are around, actually for most of the month, to be honest with you. It is frustrating and annoying, but triggers have the ability to be able to bring up things that create negative patterns for you that you don't realize is a pattern. And so it is really helpful, even though it's frustrating and annoying at the same time. The other thing that I see coming up for you this week, I kind of feel like, well, let me just put it this way. I see traffic. It's like I see you being stuck in traffic, and I don't think it's every day. There's like 1 or 2 days, or one day specifically, where it's just like really bad. I don't know if it's because there's an accident, or something is going on that seems to make it feel like you're literally just stopped and you can't move. And that's going to create some complications. The more patience you have, the easier it will be. Even though, in all honesty, it's sitting in traffic is never easy, whether you're patient or not. And it's hard to be patient when you're just sitting there not doing anything, especially when you're driving truck, because you're not making money if you're not rolling. But I do see at least one day in there this week where things are going to be just crazy because of something that is completely out of your control. So do keep that in mind. Hopefully I'm way wrong about that, because that just sounds annoying as all you know what. So that's what I have for you, Theresa. I am gonna move on to Regina. Okay, my two Scorpios. So not a whole lot going on planet-wise in Scorpio until we get to Thursday and Friday, when the moon moves into Scorpio. I've explained this like 5 times already. So this is the last time. The moon moves into join an already difficult aspect going on in the other 3 fixed signs. There's 4 fixed signs. Scorpio is a fixed sign. Leo is a fixed sign. Taurus and Aquarius are fixed signs. Currently, Leo, Taurus, and Aquarius all have planets that are aspecting each other in a very negative way. When the moon moves into Scorpio on Friday, well, actually, it moves in on Thursday, but it moves into this challenge and makes it a much bigger challenge on Friday. So it's sort of going to seem like everything is calm at the beginning of the week, and then everything just goes, what the hell just happened at the end of the week? And the fact that the moon is influencing this for you is probably going to make things frustrating and heighten that emotion a little bit. Focus is on self this week, and I find it interesting that this is coming up for you at this time with focus on self, because I feel like pardon me. I feel like what is going to happen through this aspect, or what's going to be coming up, is some issues in terms of putting others above yourself too often. And in that specific case, it's all about self-care, and or your lack of self-care, depending on how you are with your self-care. Now, self-care to me is really important. There is a value to me in a crazy hectic world of taking one day, and one day only, to disappear, pretend I'm dead, not answer my phone, and just take a me day, doing whatever I want to do, whatever relaxes me and makes me feel better. Now, obviously, Friday may not be that day, but in terms of self-care, how I see this playing out for you is, it may be kind of a crazy day at work, and then all of a sudden you have other people who are having crazy days, and they need you because you're the only one that can smooth this stuff out, and it is going to feel like you're being pulled in multiple different directions, when you're already exhausted and just want to be left alone. So my advice for that is to do whatever you can do and whatever you need to do and whatever you're responsible for. Okay. Saturn's retrograde and Saturn in this aspect, and Saturn being retrograde, it calls you to look at what kind of responsibilities you're taking on that don't belong to you. So whatever you're responsible for, and not pick up on anything else. So in terms of, I sort of look at this as you have a crazy day at work and you come home and there's somebody sitting there on your porch waiting for you, and they're like, good, you're here. I need you to do all this stuff for me. And it's like, oh, I don't think so, right? And if that is the case, you have the right to say no. I don't have it in me. I don't have the time. You know what? You don't even have to have an excuse. A plain and simple no. It's hard for people to take. But to be honest with you, over the years, it's become my absolute favorite word. I love to help people when I can, but when I can't, I've gotten really good at using that no word. I almost called it the N word, but that means something else, and we're not going to say that either. So we'll be a little bit crazy there on that day. Outside of that, and outside of the moon being in your sign Thursday and Friday, not a whole lot going on, which is good. So it kind of feels like the beginning of the week is going to run a little bit smoothly, and then as you get to the end of the week, things are just going to feel like, what the hell is going on here, and just sort of ridiculous and crazy, and then it smooths back down again. Another thing that seems to be coming up for you this week is I feel change. Change is the word that keeps coming to me. And I don't really feel it's like a major change, like a move out of state or anything like that. But I do feel that something is changing and you're having to deal with the change. And I kind of feel like you've been putting off focusing on that for a while, and we're getting really close to, you can't put it off anymore. You have to deal with it, kind of a thing. And so the more you do deal with that in the beginning of the week, the easier it will be, because of course, once we get into the latter part of the week with the moon playing into this aspect, it is going to make things a lot more difficult. So you want to try and get that done first before you get into that. So that is what I have for you. And I'm going to move on to Theresa Sheppard. Hi, Theresa. So again, moon in Scorpio this week. I just big old flashing lights. Moon in Scorpio. Moon in Scorpio. And I'll do the short version on the very big negative, challenging aspect that is going on when the moon moves into your sign on Thursday. You're going to start to feel that things become a little bit more challenging. As we get into Friday, the moon moves into what's called a fixed grand cross, or a grand cross in all the fixed signs. So that means that there are planets in all three other fixed signs outside of your fixed sign, which is Scorpio. And that creates a major challenge. Luckily, because the moon is the one creating this challenge, it lasts for a day. So that's good. So I would really be prepared for delays on Thursday and Friday, specifically Friday. Any kind of travel delays, any kind of things are not progressing as they should be. If you're working towards specific goals, Thursday and Friday, it's going to slow down your progress, like big time slow things down in kind of a really annoying way. The good news is that the moon also creates a grand trine, which is a very big, very helpful aspect. And that trine is created with Neptune and as well as Venus. So even though you're going through a situation where there could be delays, the Venus comes in and shows you some creative ways to deal with that. And when you travel on a regular basis, and I know the last time we talked, you said that that you've been very blessed to not have a whole lot of delays or problems traveling, which right now is really good. That's not going to last forever, but finding creative ways to deal with that kind of makes it helps. It makes the situation more fun than frustrating, I guess, if that makes sense. I mean, when I got stuck in Vegas for 2 hours, what do? You hit up the slot machines at the airport, right? Give yourself something to do, the penny slots, something to do while you sit there and wait, because we're just having to do that. And I'm sure every airport has something fun to look at, while you're dealing with delays. As far as the rest of the week, things do seem to be working or running pretty smoothly. Focus is on self. And in many cases, self means self improvement. So, what I do see for you is spending some time this week focused on how your schedule can work a little bit better, how you can get organized a little bit better. Not that you're not organized, but we can all organize better than we are, except for the Virgos, of course. They're already uber organized. Different things like that. And just making sure that as much travel that you do, as much care as you're putting into other people, that you're not eliminating yourself and your own self-care in that as well, because that's really important. So that is what I have for you, Theresa. And now I'm moving on to my long list of Sagittarians. We're going to start with Amanda. Not a whole lot going on in Sagittarius this week. Next week we're going to kick off the week with the moon in Sagittarius. This week, let's just enjoy the calm for a while, because the calm is always good. Focus is on the past and on the mind, and it actually gives you a really good opportunity in terms of taking stock at, pardon me, at how you used to think about things and how you think about things now. And I know, because we've been working together for a long time, that your thought process has changed quite a bit. And which is good. But also you want to take into consideration as well, make sure that you're paying more attention to thought process that automatically come up this week. So for instance, that thinking thing, we always have that voice in our head that tells us you can't do this, and you go, and most of the time you have a pretty good handle on that. You know what to do about it. When it comes up this week, just be more aware that you need to identify it and then figure out what you need to do with it from there, whether it's shut it up, whether it's lock it in a box, whether it's to sit down with it and say, okay, I understand that you're worried about this. Let's figure out what we can do to ease your worry. Sitting down, having a conversation with yourself, most people think is absolutely asinine. I look at it as sometimes I need professional advice or good advice or whatever. And it comes from me, and it comes from spirit. And so your spirit guides really can help you with this issue as well, as and when that issue comes up. The other thing that I'm being shown for you this week is I do see a lot of ideas coming up, and I've been noticing that you have been making changes in terms of your website, and the directions that you're going in. I think this week is a really good time to really take a good hour, maybe two, okay, and sit down and look at the changes that you've made, jot down the ideas that you have, and really just sort of sit down and pay attention and take stock in, is this really the direction I'm going in? I'm not saying you're making a mistake, okay? What I am saying is that by doing that and making sure, you're also making sure that you're avoiding that old pattern of constantly changing something, right? Because eventually that constant change is going to sabotage, and you're trying to avoid the sabotage. That's what we don't want to do. right? So taking the time sometime this week to make sure that your ideas are in line with the direction that you're going in, and not something that you're going to sit down and go, you know what, now I have to change the whole thing again, right? You want to avoid the sabotage. So make sure those ideas are in line with what you're already doing. And if they're not, put them on a list to create an offshoot of what you're doing. Okay, so for instance, you have the only word I can think of is the sexual empowerment, which I think you've changed that, but we're just going to go with that. You have that is your focus, but you also have these bath salts that are amazing, right? They don't necessarily line in with what you're doing, but it is an offshoot that you can create rather than changing the whole thing to suit that also. I hope that that makes sense. And that is what I have for you. I'm moving on to Sheri Bowberry, but okay. Sheri Hubble, obviously. I always sing that song with your name because you're always singing that song with your name. So, you know, it's kind of stuck in there now. You got it stuck in there now. I hope you realize this. Luckily, not a whole lot going on in Sagittarius this week in terms of planets. The moon's actually going to kick off the week next week. So, but focus is on how you think, and there are elements of the past coming into that as well. Now, I think this is very interesting for you because you've had a lot of changes this year. Your whole entire life and structure of it has changed. And what needs to change with it? The way you think about things has to change with it also. When you grow and expand and change, which is what your ruling planet Jupiter is all about, you have to change the way that you think about things too. Otherwise, you keep winding up getting stuck in the past, kind of a thing. And I, as your friend and as somebody that has loved you for a long time, I do feel that sometimes there are moments when you get tripped up by what was, because it's a comfortable thing to go back to memories of what it was like when we grew up, when we were always having fun and being irresponsible, when both of your parents were there to take care of you. It's a good escape from now where all of that has changed. And that's fine, providing you don't get lost or stuck there. So this week really is a good opportunity to take a look at how often you wind up doing that. Your brain goes back. The reason why it's important is because, yes, it's fun to remember, but the more time you spend remembering, the less time you're focused on where you are right now. And also the emotional factor of that, it becomes more emotionally draining to be constantly stuck in what was and not so much focused on what is, because let's face it, there's elements of what was that you miss in what is. And this is why people get stuck in the remember when. You know, it's always fun when we get together and discuss that, but at the same time, you got to discuss where you're going, because if you don't discuss where you're going, you don't have a plan of where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you're just sitting in the same place for long periods of time. We've both been there. We know that this is going to happen, right? So this week really is a good time to, when you get to that remember when part, obviously there are elements of that time that you can't bring back. You can't bring back your mom. You can't bring back our youth. I wish you could, but you can't bring back our youth, our times where we could be irresponsible. None of that can be brought back, but we can bring some elements of that into play. Like, for instance, when we remember when we were kids or early adults, I should say, running around being irresponsible, we give ourselves a weekend every now and then just to be like that, just to do that. You know, we can't completely and totally cut the ties from reality and responsibility, but giving ourselves that time is really helpful. Find other elements in that time that you can recreate in some way. like a date night with Matthew, right? Something that you guys used to do, you haven't been able to do in a long time. Hey, let's see if we can recreate that kind of a thing. And it sort of brings the past into the present in a way that it's helpful, but not creating a space where you're stuck there. I hope that makes sense. So that is what I have for you, and I am going to move on to Peg. Hi, Peg. Still not a whole lot going on in Sagittarius this week. Next week we're going to kick off the week with the moon in Sagittarius. At this particular time, focus is on the past, and is an element of focus in the mind there. And one of the things that I do see popping up for you this week is a lot of ideas. They may not be all ideas of things that you want to get started and do right now necessarily, but I do see one big idea that you've been tossing around in your head. And I want to say, put it down on a piece of paper and turn that idea into a goal. If you haven't done so already, I'm being told to tell you that this is something that it is a really good idea. And if you write it down and turn it into a goal, you have a better success of actually doing it. Not that you generally have problems with that, but it is helpful. The other thing that seems to be coming up for you currently right now is I feel like I sort of feel like in terms of your career, you're making big changes. I know we've talked in the past about how you're just tired of doing readings. You don't want to do them anymore. And I totally understand that because some people are just difficult. We'll just put it like that. They can be difficult. But I do feel like in terms of making these changes, there are still some things that stay the same. Like, for instance, the writing, you do have another book and things like that. But I also want to say that this week, I feel like this really isn't the week to focus on those ideas. This really isn't the week to focus on where your direction is in your career right now, or where you want that direction to go. I feel like this is peg time. And this week, I really feel very strongly that peg time is really important. I'm not sure why that's coming up. It could be because you get a cold or sick or something like that, and obviously that forces you to have peg time. I hope that that's not the case, but this also could indicate just a break in your schedule where you can have the entire week to really focus on what peg wants to do. And so your career is part of that, and how you make money is part of that. But I see some personal goals that are playing into this that you may not have had a lot of time for. But this week you do have time to pay attention to it. So I'm not saying that, there's nothing going on this week and now you have the whole week to do that. But I do see ample time for peg time, just time for you to sort of reground, regroup, disconnect, reconnect, and come back to your goals and your plans with sort of a fresh outlook, if that makes sense. So that is what I have for you. Moving on to Mama Sheri. Mama Sheri. Okay, so again, not a lot of planets, not a lot of planet influence in Sagittarius, I should say. This week, we will have the moon kicking off the week next week. In the meantime, focuses on the past and focuses on how you think. And the interesting combination about that for you, I feel right now, is that well, there's a couple of things that come up with that. First of all, we tend to look back on past experiences and glamorize them a little bit. Even sometimes our past relationships, and glamorize them a little bit. My dad kind of sort of comes up into this just a little bit. And, in terms of when we're grieving for somebody, sometimes we forget in our grief the challenges that we had with those people. And it's not to say that you're forgetting that my dad was a pain in the ass sometimes. Okay. And towards the end there, most of the time. It's not that you're forgetting that. It's more like you'd rather focus on the good parts of the relationship, which is fine. What I'm picking up from that, though, or what I'm feeling from that, though, is that there are times where okay, let me put it this way. I feel like you still spend a lot of time beating yourself up over what your responsibility in that is, what you should have done. And the truth of the matter is that he had his own responsibilities that he did not take care of. Okay. And I just want to say that when this comes up this week, it's really important for you to take yourself out of it as much as you can. The truth of the matter is that he did what he wanted to do, and he always did what he wanted to do. And this is not just going to come up with him. I feel that this is coming up with a couple of different people. And we do spend a lot of time with the coulda, shoulda. I could have done this and I should have done that and blah, blah, blah. And I totally get it. But it still comes down to what that person was willing to do for them too. So this week, when that comes up, it's really important to keep that in mind. The other thing that is coming up is I feel I feel this may be triggered by a client. Like a reading that you do that is going to trigger this feeling. Like it's very similar to whatever it is that they're going through, and it's sort of going to trigger things for you a little bit. Which I know you'll manage through that trigger just fine. You usually do. It's more afterwards that this happens. I also feel a little bit of a trigger from another person who used to be a client, we'll just say, and then maybe a new client coming in that kind of seems similar to that person, we'll just say. And I literally see you rolling your eyes on this one. But they're not the same person. So just make sure, I know you don't normally do this, but just make sure that you don't rope them into the same group, okay? Because I don't see that they are the same, but they do have similar tendencies. So just keep that in mind. So that is what I have for you. And I'm going to move on to my last one, which is Karina. Karina, we currently have Neptune in retrograde in Pisces still, always. And actually Neptune in Pisces is really lining up with different planets a lot this week. So we've got a grand sextile with Pluto and Uranus and Mars to start. We do have a trine with Venus. That will be a grand trine by the end of the week as the moon gets really close to Sagittarius, and will continue to be a grand trine into next week. These are all very powerful, very helpful aspects. And if I'm looking at it correctly, there's no negative aspects, which means that it is full forward for you. Focus is on those that you love. And one of the things that I am really picking up is this is a time for you to sit down and plan some long-term goals with those that you love. I see vacations being planned. I see end of summer fun time being planned, and not just with your child, your family, but with friends as well. I feel like with everything that you've been doing and all the work, you work really hard. I know you do. And so this time is really needed. We have to balance. Actually, one of my clients told me at the beginning of the year these three words that I absolutely love. And we have to balance these three things, and that is work, play, and rest. Now, I feel like you got the work and the rest down pretty well. The rest might be able to use a little bit of work, but I know you have a small child, so that makes things difficult. It's the play part that's really missing here, and I feel like this week is a really good opportunity for you to really focus on that. Schedule some time for that. We all have days off. How we use the days off really depends on how we use the days off. And so playtime is necessary. And especially for Pisces. Pisces have an element of all 12 signs. And so you have a little bit of each one. That's a lot to carry around when you think about it. When you're just focused on work and rest and that's it, it really makes things difficult for you to keep focused on that. You've got to take some time out to climb a tree every now and then, to do a cannonball in a pool every now and then. It's sort of the playtime helps you to step back to a time where you didn't have responsibility for a minute and put it down so that it's not such a heavy burden for you. The other thing that I feel is coming out of this week as well is with focus on those that you love. I feel like this is also opening up some time to actually enjoy those people. Most of the time, well, not most of the time, but a lot of the time they're a burden. They're our responsibility. They're just people that we have to take care of or deal with or have taken care of us or what have you. It's very rare in a very busy schedule sometimes to actually have some time to sit down and enjoy those people. But I do feel that this week there will be some time created for that as well, with those that you love. And it's possible that you're sitting down with those people and creating these this fun schedule with them as well. So that is what I have for you, Karina. And that is what I have for everybody. If you would like to be on the list for a reading every week, please go to my website, heavymetalpsychic.com. Check out plans and pricing and become a member. With a membership, a $10 membership a month, you can be on this list. That's all it takes. You get a reading every single week. So check that out. And that's all I have. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. You guys have a great week, and I will see you next week.